They mai discussed initially. Billy got a bushing, Kim Lachini does the chain, Billy got a nationale. Welcome back to Res Ball, where now we're going to talk about Villanova wing Wooga Poplar, a guy that's been talked about for the last 2 or 3 seasons, pretty much since Miami went to the Final Four. Wooga Poplar's been on draft radar. One of the more forgotten prospects here, and like the more I've dove into him and the more you watched Wooga Poplar this year, I really don't get why more people aren't talking about Wooga Poplar. So let's dive into Wooga Poplar's game right about now. Wooga is known as Nicene Hamir Poplar. That's his full given name. Wooga was a nickname given to him by his grandmother or his aunt. I've heard both stories. I am uncertain which one it is, but it is a family nickname. What it means, I have no idea. And I've heard Wooga from other people, but according to Philadelphia folks, it's Wooga, Wooga Poplar. If you know what it means, let me know. Wooga is from Philadelphia, PA. I mean, really, if you dive into the story of this kid, not like your traditional basketball family, not even your traditional, he's been on the radar and went through UIBL and all these circuits and stuff. Definitely like from the streets. If you hear Wooga tell his story, Miami did a really good job of had an interview of Wooga about 2 or 3 years ago. I'll try and find the link here in a minute. So when we get to the YouTube stuff, where he really details like, no, I was like jumping the fence to go play on the basketball court before it even opened and stuff. Really started at like the rec centers there in Philadelphia, like the MLK Rec Center, and then went to two different high schools before ending up at the Math, Civics, and Science Charter School, where he ended up being a three-time All-State pick when all was said and done with his high school career. Final season at MCSC school, 18.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, 3 assists, 1.9 steals per game, 1.1 block per game, 2.7 assists per game, or 2.7 turnovers per game, excuse me. So, and the shooting splits for Wooga in that final season at Mass Civics and Science Charter School, 61% from 2 point range, 41% from 3 point range, and then 79% from the free throw line. That's going to be a reoccurring thing here. And Wooga really like went down this route of I'm going to stick with who wants me, especially after that first season at MCSC school. Like a lot of those other higher ranks and more well-regarded quote unquote schools in Philadelphia didn't really give him a chance. Like they already had their roster set up. Wooga's a good guy to talk to about like some of the issues with high school basketball and lower levels where it's like you get the label on you and you get your guys early on. And if you're not already in that system, it's hard to break through. But Wooga stayed at MC, the Mass Civics Charter School there, and really it helped him out so much there because that's really what got the eyes on him. I believe he was like number 78 overall recruit and then ended up going to Miami for his first 3 years and then ended up back home in Philadelphia at Villanova for his final season. I really like Wooga's story. One of the guys I would really go to bat for, both in terms of who he is, didn't take the traditional route, like really had to work on his own and didn't have a lot of people in his corner until much later on in life. Very well spoken young man and is all about hard work and grinding from the beginning. Even if he ends up being undrafted, it's like Wooga's been down this road before. I have all the confidence in the world in him. First 3 seasons at Miami, didn't play much as a freshman, ended up on a Final Four team that sophomore season. A lot of people thought he should probably go after that sophomore season where he was 53.8% from 2 point range, 37.5% from three, 8.4 points per game, played 23 and a half minutes. Then as a junior at Miami, 13.1 points per game, 47% from 2 point range, 38.5% from 3 point range. Both seasons at Miami, 86% or better from the free throw line. Tested the waters last year after Miami as a junior, ended up going back and coming back home to Villanova to help out Kyle Neptune, Eric Dixon, and that Villanova squad that was struggling. Final season here at Villanova, fourth year, 15.3 points per game for Wooga Poplar, 7 rebounds per game, which was the big thing to me that was surprising. Really got on the glass this year. 1.5 steals per game, or 1.5 assists per game, excuse me, 1.3 steals per game, 0.3 blocks per game, and then 1.8 turnovers per game. Shooting splits for Wooga in this last season at Villanova: 51.7% from 2-point range, 38.7% from 3-point range, and then 85.6% from the free throw line. How many times is I going to say this? 85% or better from the free throw line the past 3 seasons at Miami and at Villanova. If you believe that shooting mechanics at the free throw line have anything to do with your 3-point shot, this is somebody to buy into 100%. You don't average 85% from the free throw line for 3 consecutive seasons at Miami. Ain't no slouch there. And Villanova, you know everybody's coming for you if you're not picture perfect with those mechanics. And then the last 3 seasons, 37% or better from the 3-point line. And oh, by the way, this is somebody who took more attempts every single year. Only 0.8 as a freshman, 21.4%. 2.8 as a sophomore, 37.5%. As a junior, 5.6 3-point attempts per game. And then it did go down. I shouldn't say every year, but it did go down, quote unquote, to just 5 3-point attempts per game as a senior, 38.7%. That percentage went up every single year. That doesn't happen very often. You couple that in with it being over 37% the past 3 seasons, you couple that in with over 85% from the free throw line, you have a fantastic 3-point shooter that measures in at 6'5" without shoes, 202 pounds with a 6 foot and 6.5 inch wingspan. These are numbers, if you're watching this on YouTube, from the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. If you don't remember, the PIT guys, this is from Michael Visenberg on Twitter at NBA Draft Mikey V. So again, shout out to Michael Visenberg for posting these online. All the athletic testing at the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament we're taking from the basic athletic measurements, BAM, who also do the G League and do stuff with the NBA. So it's not like it's an unreputable source. So you're looking at a guy 6'5" in shoes, so legitimately a 6'6", 202 pounds, about even 6'6.5" wingspan, who the number one thing starting off is a knockdown 3-point shooter. Great mechanics. The other things to look at with Wooga Poplar, true shooting percentage this last season was 58.4%. True shooting percentage, 43.4% 3-point attempt rate, and then 26.6% free throw attempt rate, which did go up from the previous 2 seasons. So that's a good indicator. And then the rebounding this year was really good, especially on the defensive glass. Like you can tell Wooga really worked on that part of it. And Villanova was like, okay, we want you to really attack and then bring things back in transition and get on the defensive glass in particular. 251 total rebounds, career high this last year at Villanova, 220 defensive rebounds. That's over 100 more rebounds than he had the previous season. He had 119 as a junior at Miami and then 220 as a senior. So 101 more rebounds at Villanova. Woof. Getting busy, and then 31 on the offensive class. That translates to a 22.5% defensive rebound rate. They're big men we've looked at who didn't have that good of a defensive rebounding percentage, I mean, in the season. So kudos to Wooga Poplar and the work that he put in on the glass. 25.4% usage. So even though he was the secondary guy, like Eric Dixon was the primary Villanova, Wooga Poplar was still 25.4%, which is a good rate to me. Wasn't Super Bowl dominant, but also had a feature role and was rewarded with some of the best stats he had in his entire 4-year career in NCAA basketball. Career high true shooting percentage with that 58.4%. Career high that with the defensive rebounding stuff in the total numbers, in per game, in the percentage there. And then career low in turnover rate at 12.2%, with all this on the career high of 25.4% usage. This is all great stuff for a 6-foot guy, 6'6" guy who's primarily a 3-point shooter. You want all of these things in the profile. Let's go to the shot chart for Wooga Poplar. At the rim, 64.2% on 120 shots. Has really good sneaky athleticism. Wooga Poplar might be the most underrated athlete in this draft class. I mean, if he gets a clear lane, he is going to yam it and jam it. That's part of why he got better on the free throw line too. I think he understood how to attack a little bit better. I also think if he reaches like contested shots, he did a good job of either getting through it or doing like a reverse, getting up and under, being able to get a little scoop layup and stuff. That stuff got better as being a primary guy at Villanova. 64.2% on 120 shots at the rim, 77 out of 122. Very respectable percentage for a guard, for a wing that isn't that necessarily your number one skill, but it shows you got better at it. Wooga Poplar's handle is very trustable, in my opinion. Doesn't really do too many fancy things to get himself in trouble and get the ball knocked down, things like that. I think the handle's a little bit too high, if I'm being quite honest, but it wasn't ever really a thing to me to where he got reckless with the ball. So that's probably going to be something in the NBA that if teams do let him handle it, it's like you got to tighten that up. Don't bounce the ball up so high because that's something that's easy to poke out. Concerning part is in the paint. 16 of 45 shots in the paint that translated to only 35.6%. While I think Wooga has craft and has physicality to get to the rim and, throw down a dunk almost like once a game, in the paint, no touch, no runner floater, like not a lot of things. If he doesn't get to the rim and he's in the paint, it probably isn't going in. That's something he'll have to work on there. The good part about this, though, is this is somebody who does have a pretty good jumper in the mid range and something that was busted out this year as the primary dude. You occasionally saw it at Miami, but this year at Villanova, being the secondary guy to Eric Dixon, it's like, okay, when you get run off the line, what are you going to do? A lot of times he got to the rim and finished or got some free throws. Didn't work out so well in the paint, but that's the shot he took the least of out of like paint, rim, mid range from three. 71 shots in the mid range for 40.8%. So that's a little bit above average. But this is another area where, like, okay, look at the different zones. Left baseline, 4 of 9, 44.4%, small sample size. 7 of 13 from the right baseline, 53.8%. That's okay. Like, it's still a smaller sample size. 10 of 24 from the left elbow, 41.7%. And then 8 of 25 from the right elbow, 8 of 25. So really, it's only that right elbow where it's like, okay, those seem to be the most inefficient shots. And again, 71, it's a good indicator of like, okay, he can do this, but took a total of 417 shots. So 71 out of the 417 total, wasn't over reliant on it. It really ended up being like, okay, I have to pull out this shot. I have to get here. And did have his spots of like taking the elbow jumpers. Obviously, you want that right elbow to be better, but it's still there in the arsenal. And especially for a shooter who's going to be somebody that isn't considered a lottery pick. Spoiler alert, I actually have Wooga Poplar pretty high. I have Wooga Poplar at 27. I initially had him at the end of the second round, but the more that I studied the film, the more I kept coming back to it. The athleticism, number one, pops. This is a legitimate 6'6" guy. Always was a really good 3-point shooter. Continues to be a very good athlete. Has a reliable handle to do other things. And then the rim numbers, the fact he can pull out an elbow jumper and stuff when he gets run off the line. Also, like there's more things here to me that make me buy into at the end of the first round when you're searching for somebody. When you're searching for somebody, normally at the end of the first round, it's like, okay, let's take this super raw guy that has unreal athleticism and that maybe our development and track can have. Peyton Watson, very great idea of that type of player at the end of round one, where it's like, okay, the production was really bad, but we know the background. This guy at the size, ball handling, movement, defensive stuff, you don't see very often. So let's take him and give him some time. A point guard, normally it's like a veteran point guard in NCAA basketball or overseas, like a Peyton Pritchard is a very great example of this. We're like, okay, maybe athletically limited, maybe not the biggest guy here, but you know what? We believe that he is a point guard who takes care of the ball. We know we'll run the second unit and as a knockdown 3-point shooter or somebody that can like really attack the rim. And the other one to me is always like the 3-and-D guy here at the end of round one. Even for somebody like a Reggie Bullock, who I think goes unheralded. The reason why Reggie Bullock gets taken at the end of round one is he's like 6'07", 205, and he shot the three very well, and teams still bought into that. And I think Wooga Poplar is a better ball handler and a better athlete than that. And that type at the end of round one, and especially in this draft where a lot of people say outside of the lottery, it's a crapshoot. You know what's not a crapshoot is 6'6" plus athleticism with 3 straight years of over 85% from the free throw line and 37% or better from three, while gaining number one offensive scorer skills. I will come back to Maxwell Bombach and Stephen Gillespie time and time again. When you're looking for dudes after whatever the talent drop off is, end of first round, second round, it's always a good idea to buy into the guy that can fill a role, but was the man who had these skills that they got along the way to where if they get run off the line, if they're pushed outside of the role, guess what? They have the experience to do other things that if they're not filling their role, that's the end of it. It's not that case with Wooga Poplar. The rim numbers in the mid range, yes, the 3-point shot's going to be the number one thing, but he has all these other skills that you're going to feel fine with him as a supplementary role player from 3-point range. To give you the breakdowns, I mean, I already gave you the total numbers, but to give you specific breakdowns in the corners, 16 of 42, 38.1%. From above the break threes, Wooga Poplar was 51 of 131 shots at 38.9%. That's a lot of 3-point shots, right? Break it down into specific zones. From left corner, 7 of 19, 36.8%. From right corner, 9 of 23. The smallest areas of the corner, the smallest sample in the 3-point area in the corners. Again, this is a guy that's a primary. So if you're a primary, you're not necessarily just going to be standing in a corner. But I feel pretty confident that Wooga Poplar can be somebody that can be a good corner 3-point shooter in the NBA. Because from left wing, 22 of 61, 36.1%. Top of the key, 14 of 38, 36.8%. And then from the right wing, 15 of 32, 46.9%. Everywhere else above the break threes, it's all 36% or better. And then from that right wing, 46.9% is red, scorching hot. Wooga also took those super long ones, like logo threes, I guess is what we're calling them, and was 3 of 7 from those super long areas. Really, like, there's not a lot of dudes we're gonna look at, or you look at every draft cycle that take more than like 5 logo type threes. So this is somebody that is super confident in his jumper, and as we should be, and as he should be, where you're like, wherever he takes it from on the court, if it's end of the shot clock, if it's like, hey, we got to take this here now, end of the quarter, end of the half, chance that it's going to go in just because the mechanics are really great and learn how to shoot from a variety of places. I do also think Wooga can play on ball and off ball as a shooter here. I mean, all these things from Miami to his time at Villanova, they do scream, you know what? It doesn't matter the shooting role I'm in, I'm still going to be able to fill it. Again, sure, sometimes you look at it and you're like, well, he kind of just needed to be on ball. But go back and look at the Miami film. He was always happy to be in the supplementary shooter role. And even he has said himself in many interviews, like his number one thing was as a 3-point shooter. And it wasn't until he was like in 8th grade-ish where he was able to start dunking and then the ball handling and attacking the rim there. But he himself still conceives of himself as a 3-point shooter first and foremost. I think defensively he's fine. He has the athleticism to definitely hang with people and guard either the point guard or the shooting guard. I'm sure there are going to be talent evaluators that will knock him for the wingspan, 6'6.5" if I remember correctly, at 6'6.5" so it's pretty like even wingspan. But it's not always about the physical tools and the measurements on defense. It's more about desire, and that is something that I think Wooga is going to have to work out more. Probably going to take a year or two. I really wanted to give Wooga the KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope comparison, because I do think athletically they're pretty similar, especially when the more games you watch this year of Wooga for me, the more I'm like, man, that does look a lot like Georgia version of KCP. And KCP didn't shoot it that well his second year, his final season at Georgia, but you could tell, like, yeah, the mechanics are great and he's going to shoot it well. It just took his time to get away from Detroit. Ugh, as much as it pains me as a Piston fan to say, is to get away from Detroit and then go to the Lakers, go to the Nuggets, go to the Wizards, even now in the Magic, even though he had a tough year shooting from three, when he was in the supplementary role player guy, the 4th, 5th starter, super efficient, ended up becoming one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA on guards. That's a tall task for a Wooga Poplar. Again, the defense doesn't stand out the way a KCP's did even in college, so I can't quite get there on Wooga Poplar as KCP. I think it's probably more like Jordan Hawkins, where Jordan Hawkins was drafted, I believe, like 16-ish. I don't think Wooga will get that high, but I think it's that same kind of role where you see Jordan Hawkins now physically a little bit limited. I think Wooga could be a little better on defense there. But the main thing is like, dude, fire away from three. And the other one that I thought about is Nikhil Alexander Walker. But again, the defense hasn't quite gotten there, and I think Nikhil isn't quite the launcher from three. And at the very minimum, like Jordan Hawkins is where I see with Wooga Poplar. Jordan Hawkins about 6'5", 185. So there's a little bit of a size difference, but one of the reasons why Jordan Hawkins hasn't broken through as more than like a bench player in your rotation, like seventh, eighth man, is because defensively limited. So I think at the bare minimum, Wooga Poplar can be like a Jordan Hawkins, where you're like, dude, just run off screens, do all this other stuff, and fire away from three, while also being a plus athlete. So that's why I have Wooga Poplar at 27, because I'm like, everything to me indicates from the size to the player type of shooting threes with a really good athleticism. It's just going to come down to the defense. And then again, even if that doesn't necessarily pan out, quote unquote, you still look at somebody like Jordan Hawkins, where you're like, yeah, shoot away from three. You can do it on the ball, off the ball. I trust in your 3-point shot and your athleticism above everything else. Some things to look at on YouTube for Wooga Poplar. Nova Shot Network is the absolute number one source for anything Wooga Poplar. They put together a nice offensive highlight for him this last season. The other one is Inside Villanova Basketball from the Villanova Athletic Program, to give you a nice little interview from Wooga himself and his teammates. The Miami interview I was talking about earlier, Inside the U, is the YouTube channel, Wooga Poplar's basketball journey from Philly to Miami. That's probably the best Wooga Poplar video out there. It's not going to give you his game, but it's going to give you his journey and do all the background stuff that I said of like, this, yeah, I know I don't really want to say like from the streets, because you know that usually entails, um, but like it's for real. Like he was just playing in the playgrounds and playing in the rec centers. This isn't somebody that had, EYBL circuits and AAU teams and all that stuff. Like he was grinding out there because he just loved basketball, and then continued to get better and better, work on his craft, and get the eyeballs at him at the charter school, and then have the college teams buy into him and have the great career that he's had in college basketball so far. So again, Wooga Poplar's basketball journey from Philly to Miami by Inside the U. Take it back as time in Miami. Fantastic, fantastic interview. And you can tell like the person that interviews him really understands Philly and really understands the young man. Great, great interview. Nova Shot Network, I cannot say enough good things about him. Again, they put together a bunch of different Wooga Poplar things. If you want to see a game from Villanova on Wooga Poplar, go look at Nova Shot Network. They're going to have you covered. So again, Wooga Poplar, I have him as a late first round pick. You just buy into the shot. You just buy into the athleticism. How many 3-and-D guys, 6'6", that have this track record of being a great shooter and being a plus athlete can you find in the 2025 NBA draft? I don't think very many. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to switch up position groups, go back to the big man spot. So I'm going to